Hey, very good afternoon to you traders. Mark here from Day Trading Room. Time is 1 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Bit of a different video this week. I want to talk about how to develop new trading setups and strategies to add to your portfolio of trading plays. Now, some of the best strategies and setups I've got come from observing the markets and then adapting and adjusting the strategy and adding some rules to it. Now, it's very important as a trader that to keep on top of things, to stay profitable, to stay ahead of the curve, if you like, and stay in tune with the markets. You're always developing and working on new strategies, new setups, new ways of trading, because markets change, participants change, the fundamentals of supply demand still remain the same, but ultimately there's different nuances that occur. That means there are different opportunities and ways to take money from the markets. So how do I go about developing a new strategy? That's what I want to talk about today. So the first thing I do is I observe. Number one is I observe. So when I'm just sitting here and I'm trading and I'm watching the markets as I do it every day, one thing I'll be doing is writing notes about a pattern that I may see. So something that catches my eye. It could be anything from the length of a pullback, from the amount that the market breaks through a key level before retracing, to the distance away from the VWAP during a drive. To it could be absolutely anything that you're doing in your market. It could be some correlation, absolutely anything. I can go on forever with examples. The first thing is to observe something that seems to be a pattern, and as humans we're pretty good at recognizing stuff that's a little bit different and spotting patterns. And number two, then I start to, when I think I've got something of interest, then I start to analyze it. So if I think I've got something that I can potentially turn into a strategy that's going to make me some money, then at that point I'm going to go into a little bit more depth. And that may start off with things like just going back and looking at charts. I may have observed it in real time. That's generally how the best ideas come, when you're observing them in real time and you go, oh, you know what, I saw that last week, or I saw that on Monday. And then you can start to do some more in-depth analysis, and you go back and you start looking at your charts, and then you can start to put, once you recognize that there is potentially a strategy there, then the final stage, the third stage is to refine it. So you're going to add some rules to it. You're going to add some criteria so that you frame the trade a little bit. Look for your targets, look for your criteria to entry. Is it a day? Is it a time of day? Is it a type of move in the market? What is it? So you can build it and start creating an actual workable strategy with it. And then obviously the fourth, well, it's not really a final stage, but the fourth stage is to actually trade it, and then that just becomes an infinite loop there. So you're trading it. Maybe you're just watching it and seeing how it works for a little bit longer with those rules. Maybe you refine the rules a little bit. Maybe you start trading it small. Maybe you integrate it within your existing strategies. So you're not just trading it as a standalone strategy, but you're integrating it with your already proven strategies that are working for you, and say, okay, well, if I can add this to it, I'm adding an extra layer of edge to my strategy. And then you're refining it, and if it's got mileage, it will become part of your plan. Maybe it won't work. Maybe it will work for a short period of time, and then stop working, or maybe it becomes something you can build on and create a whole new approach to trading from. So okay, that's just general idea. Now what I want to quickly do is just run through just one that I've spotted as an example. Now one I've spotted is, when we talk about in the morning meeting, morning briefing, in the room we discuss the European markets and what's been happening. And something that always seems to happen is that the DAX is often near to the VWAP before the US Open. So I start to think, okay, is there a strategy I can develop from it? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just flick you over to the spreadsheet, and then we'll go from there and explain a bit further. Okay, so here we are. This is the spreadsheet. Now basically all I've done here is I've just imported 15-minute data from the DAX throughout the whole day from the start of the year. And you can see there we've got the date, time, open, high, low, close, and this is just irrelevant stuff that happens to be on the chart as I was importing it. But what I really want is this VWAP and the open, high, low, close data. So let's say now I've got a theory that we are pretty close to the VWAP. A lot of times at the US session open. Now I can start thinking in my head, okay, if that happens, then maybe a mean retracement trade, when we start to get heavily away from the VWAP, looking for a pullback towards that mean for the US session open is something I can start to trade against. So first of all, what I want to do is I need to just put some numbers on the table. I just want to see it visually, how often I can ask a question in my head and then look for some answers doing some number crunching. Now, by no means an expert in Excel at all, but I find it's a nice tool to start to visualize something different from just a chart. So what I'll do is I will just pause the recording now, and I'll do some number crunching, and I'll restart the recording in a minute. I'll just explain what I've done. Okay, so here we are back, and this is what I've done. I've trimmed off some of the bits we don't need. I've filtered out. I've taken 15-minute candles, as I say, and what I've done is all I've wanted to see is the last 15 minutes before the US Open. The US Open is at 2:30 UK time, and the candle ends at 2:30. So I want the last 15-minute candle before 2:30. So I've discarded everything out, and just left it as a filter. What I've also done in this column here, I've put the distance from the VWAP at the close. So in other words, at the close, I want to see how far away at the close of that bar, i.e. The opening print of the US session, how far away the DAX is from its VWAP. Okay, and this is what this is giving me here. 44, 14 above it, 23 above it, and all I've done is then I've normalized that so that it doesn't matter whether it's above or below, it just ticks away using the square root and squared function. So now I want to chart that. I want to see, actually, what I've done additionally is I've rounded that to the nearest 5, so that we've got a little bit of the nearest 5 points on the DAX. So it just takes away some of the edges. So now I want to see exactly what that looks like graphically. So I'm going to stick it on a chart here. I'm going to change my chart type to one of my templates, and here we start getting some interesting observations. Now we can see that this is the distance from the VWAP since the start of the year. The DAX has been at the opening bell of the US session, and you can see how often, especially in the past few weeks, and the observation that I've made is starting to look genuine now, that we have been very rarely more than 20 points away from the VWAP, and very often, especially the last week, 5 points away, right on it, and I consider that almost pretty much on it. So that becomes, that's an interesting observation. I quite like that. Then I went one step further, and I thought, okay, what I'd like to know is during that last 15-minute period before the US opens, how far away do we get from the VWAPs? In other words, that 15-minute period, if I was to take a mean reversion trade at some time, before the US Open, maybe an hour or so before, as we started going to highs and I saw some sort of double top pattern or double bottom, whatever I used to gauge mean reversion counter trend trade, can I look to take it off towards that VWAP as we come into the last 15 minutes before the US Open? And so what I've done is I've taken the high point, the low point, the lowest point we've got, or the closest we've got to the VWAP in the last 15 minutes. I've done the same sort of thing, and I've rounded it off to the nearest 5 here. And so we'll chart that now, and we'll see what sort of interesting stuff we get. Let me change the template so we can see it clearer. And now this is where it starts to get interesting. These are the results here. Basically, in the final 15 minutes before the US bell, this is this chart is telling us how the closest we have come to the VWAP, and very often you can see we've tagged it, especially in the last few weeks, and at the very worst it's been 15 ticks away. It's rounded, so it could be slightly higher than that. So that's just an idea. I can start to develop an idea from that. I can say, okay, well, that's interesting, because now I know that the market is tending to, for whatever reason, the Europeans want to get back to the VWAP because they're not sure how the Open's going to be. The Opens have been a little bit surprising sometimes in the US, for whatever reason. Maybe then they don't want to get too stretched, too far ahead or too far away, so they're reverting around some sort of mean, which in this case is the VWAP. So I can start to develop an idea from that, and what I then can do is I can then go one step further, and I can say, okay, so that's my exit criteria. I'm looking to come out on a mean reversion back to the VWAP just before the US Open, the final 15 minutes. I've done the number crunching. I've seen that that's feasible majority of the time. Nothing's going to work every time, guys, that's just the fact of trading, but I can see it works the majority of the time. Can I then develop a strategy from that? So what I might do further on is I might say, okay, how far away, what's the maximum we get away from the VWAP? And if I just pause it a second, I'm just going to show you something Okay, so here's the a pre-market note. You can get this on the site if you go to their pre-market note, and this is what I put in each morning before the open, just some ideas. And if you scroll down to here, you see some analysis I've also included. But maximum distance away from VWAP, cash session in 50-minute intervals YM. So that's basically plotting every 15 minutes how the maximum we've got away from the VWAP. So what I could do is something very similar to that with the DAX, and it is exactly what I'm going to do as soon as I finish this video. See how far away, the averages, or generally how far away from the VWAP we get during the day before that US Open, and then I can use that information combined with the information that we tend to retrace back to the VWAP before the Open, and I can develop a strategy around it. I can start to put in my entry criteria. Maybe I bolt it into some other stuff. I'll obviously be adding tape into that. Then I'll be looking for some risk parameters, sizing issues, and it comes back to that same thing where we're constantly refining. Maybe trade it for a bit, refine it, add it to your strategy. But anyway, the point of the video is it's just an example of how you can go about creating new trading strategies, because you can't expect to sit down each day and just trade by the seat of your pants and just whatever way you feel like it. You've got to have some sort of approach. You've got to have some sort of method. You've got to have some sort of strategies in place. Yes, it's never going to be very, very strict. Trading's never black and white. There's some grey areas. But if you've got a framework to work from, and you've got a selection of strategies and a selection of setups and ways of looking at the market that you have in front of you or in your mind or written down in a portfolio or in a book, whatever it may be, then you're adding some structure, you're framing your trade, and you're going to be performing so much better than the people that just sit down and just watching the market depth and just trading without any form of discipline and strategy. So that's just an idea. That's just a way that I sometimes do things. I don't always use Excel. I'll often look at it. Sometimes it's not useful at all, but in that case it is, because I've made the observation, I've seen it. I then want to go and analyze it a bit further. I then dig down. I then create some sort of visual representation of it, and then once I feel like I've got something, I can go even further than that, and then look for maybe the entry, the exit, whatever, however it's structured. But you get the idea. So something a bit different this week. Hopefully next week will be some good action. We're at some key levels in the markets. Looking forward to it. I think it should be a busy one. Keeping the risk managed as always. And if you are interested in joining us in the room, click on the chat room. Then you can read some of the information there about what we do. And if you'd like to join us, then fill out this form here and I'll send you an email. There's no charge for room access at the moment, and it's limited space, but participation is expected. Because it's limited space, we do expect you to make some contribution into the chat where and when you can. I'm not expecting to be chatting all the time. We're very much focused when the times needs to be focused. But if you can contribute, in the down times when it's quiet, then we'd like to see that if you want to be part of the room. So okay guys, have a great rest of your weekend wherever you are, and I shall be back with another video most likely next week. Take care.